do. So first off, thank you for joining. It's YP Highlands stepping into the future. So this is going to be our first virtual on the menu for YP Highlands. And we have a very special guest today. And it's one that I personally believe is one that's needed for a lot of us that are working at home, and we're having to cope with this balance of, where do I cut my day off? When I get to take some time for myself and still get my job done. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. There's a couple of housekeeping notes. One, pet peeve of mine, if you're not talking, please put your thing on mute, please. And then the second part of that is, if you want to participate and ask questions, type your questions in the chat box, and we'll have someone read those off, and we'll have the guest speaker answer those questions and address those, okay? All right. So I want to introduce somebody before I guest speaker, and I want to say, YP Highlands does really well with our community members, and one of those community members is Cummins Filtration. They have a very good rapport with the community. They're always supporting community outreaches, and in fact, our guest speaker has a relationship with Cummins. So what I would like to do is I would like to introduce my friend Imon Uduwehi. I believe I got that right. He works for Cummins. He is a part of this leadership team for YP Highlands. And I want to give him a chance to say a few words and introduce his friend, our guest speaker.
Hey, thanks, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Lovely. Love the nodding heads. That's great. My name is Imon Uduwehi, as Jason said. Today, it's my great privilege to introduce our speaker, Sarah John. She moved to the area with her husband a couple of years back, and their two kids, Bodhi, 9, and Reggie, 8, and a wonderful golden doodle. If you rang in earlier, you probably caught that conversation, a 12-year-old Reese. Okay, Sarah joining our team at Cummins, contracted through Premise Health, was really a blessing for us because she brings a lot of expertise in the area of well-being, health, and just the life balance skills. Sarah received a bachelor's in psychology with a minor in coaching from Pittsburgh State University and a master's in education from University of St. Mary. And I have so many testimonials of how her work the last couple of years with our team has really affected the life of some of our coworkers. Me personally, I like to just go sit and talk with her when you're having a stressful day, and she has a way about her of just bringing calm and setting you at ease. So without further ado, I'll just love to share Sarah with you all, and let's all enjoy her this afternoon. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Imon, thank you for your kind words. The feeling is so mutual with you. As a friend, I always walk away from our conversations like, what can I do now? How can I make a difference with myself or others? And so I certainly appreciate you. And being a part of the Cummins team has been a gift to me as well. I do enjoy my work there with their community, but I get just as much back out of it as hopefully as they get from me as well. So thank you for that kind introduction. I'm gonna turn off my camera here for a minute and share my screen. I have a presentation to share with you all. As he said, can you guys see that okay? Yes, good. I can see heads nodding.
Yes, we can.
Turn it, there we go. And I'm gonna pull up the chat box here as well. And so I will really work to pay attention to that. But if anybody else that's helping to moderate wants to call me out if I keep talking and there's something in. But I'm an unprecedented time for many of us. I'm gonna see if, give me just a second here, guys. There it goes. It goes again, I'm sorry. We're really in an unprecedented time for many of us with what all has been going on over the last few months. And so today we're gonna sort of talk about that work-life integration. I know that we typically hear work-life balance, so we're gonna kind of look at it a little bit differently today. We are going to understand remote work. I don't know how many of you are working remotely now. The skills and the tips and the thoughts that I share about that are perfectly relevant if you're still going into the office. It's a little bit geared towards if you're working remotely, but still relevant no matter how you're working, and the importance of building a routine. And I know that this is a very stressful time. So we are going to be talking about healthy coping practices for stress management and how we can really build resilience through this time to come out of it even stronger. And throughout all of these topics, you are going to hear me talk about the concept of self-care. And why is self-care so important? I like to use the analogy of if you get on an airplane and they're going through all of the safety talk, and they say if the oxygen mask drops, we hope we don't get to that place, but if the oxygen mask drops, put it on yourself first. And there's a reason they have to actually tell us to do that, because our gut instinct is to take care of others, to take care of work, to take care of the people and the things and the responsibilities that we have around us. And most of the time, and particularly in stressful situations, that's the first thing to go, the things that really help us practice self-care. And so we're going to talk about how that's woven through all of these things and the importance of it. One last important note before we get started, you're going to hear me talk about practices throughout this, things that we can practice. And I played volleyball in college. I love sports. I love athletics. So if you know anything about sports, you know we practice things over and over and over again to build muscle memory. We want to ingrain something. Think memory. The same thing is true of the practices that we're going to talk about today. The more that we practice these in our everyday life, the better we become at them, the more equipped we are to manage these things that life throws our way. So let's go ahead and get started. See if I can, my computer's a little bit slow, so I apologize. But we are going to start out by talking about work-life integration. And I'm sure that you have heard at some point about this concept of work-life balance. And we used to talk about that a lot, but the problem with using balance is that it promotes that it's this 50-50 concept. There we go, sorry. It's this 50-50 concept, right? Balance is, it supports that everything is split between work and our lives. And really with the way that life runs today, it's an unrealistic expectation that we have. Smartphones, laptops, iPads, technology, the commitments that we have between work and community and family, we're juggling a lot of things oftentimes. And so it's not this, I clock in and I clock out and my time is divided evenly sort of looking anymore. And it is really confusing regardless, but when we add working from home, it becomes even more difficult to feel like work and life are separate. So in order to keep things simple, we first need to accept the fact that many of us are working at home, and that's just sort of the current reality. We can't separate the two. And so instead of trying to separate them, it's important that we find a way to integrate or blend the two, yet also maintain a routine that allows us to accomplish each thing that we need to throughout our day. So work-life integration does not mean that work has to take over your home life. It doesn't mean working more hours necessarily or giving up your social life, nor does it mean that we watch TV all day in our pajamas and get paid for it, which can be something that happens. So what it does mean is allowing the flexibility in your schedule in order to allow you to have time for the things that are important to you. I need to start hitting this button earlier because it's taking, there we go. So you can sort of see from these two graphs, work-life balance is just assuming, okay, my life is 50% and my work is 50%, and that's how it should be. Work-life integration is taking all of those things that are important to us and blending them together, making sure that we're finding ways in it. A small example would be taking a walk, taking a 10-minute break from your desk, get up, go outside, take a walk. Maybe through that you get a little bit of physical activity. Maybe you go with a colleague that is a friend at work and you get in some community time, but the two are not necessarily going to be separated and divided as they have been in the past. So if any of you have been working from home very long, you know why it's important to integrate the two, because it's going to make you crazy or lazy otherwise. So we're finding that it is more difficult than we think to work from home. And some of us were really struggling with this even before all of this happened. People are struggling without their routines. They're working extra long hours, or some are barely working at all. And so it's important that we recognize that there are perks to finding this work-life integration. We like to portray work as the bad guy, right? Like, oh, I have to go to work today. But we can't have a good home life without money. And we can't work all day and expect to have good relationship with our spouse, our kids, our friends, whomever. So it's not always achievable to have a balance all the time. And that's why we want to integrate it. And when we do find that we are integrating, see some of the perks here, we know that we're more happy with our jobs, we're more likely to stay with our jobs. And if we don't, we might have burnout. We, if we find all that we do is work, our home life suffers, we might be unhappy, grumpy. And so it's really important that we are finding that. And if any of you are supervisors or bosses, it's important that we recognize the importance of this in our employees as well, and that we are promoting this work-life integration. The really key thing to note is that work-life balance is not the end goal, right? So it's something that we have to continually work on. It's also not something that anyone else can do for us. We really have to put in the work within ourselves. And everyone's experience is going to look a little bit different because we all have different priorities and different values. So we're going to discuss some ways that we can do that soon. But I also want to note that, we often are so overwhelmed with so many things nowadays that we cannot expect to be good at everything all the time. It's just not possible. If we envision, an employee juggling the number of balls that they had, even 20 years ago, it's far less than what we're working with now, what we're trying to figure out. So giving ourselves a little bit of grace can be important in this as well, and understanding that it's a process. This slide states we have over 100 times more options than a generation ago in terms of the choices that we have both on and off the job. So it's important that we just recognize that, it's just something that we have to manage and work through. A couple notes on working remotely. As you can see from this chart, most people enjoy the flexibility of their schedule, not having a commute time, allowing them extra time for other things. So I just want to pause for a second. Is there any you guys can discuss that's really going well? Does anybody want to say something that you've enjoyed about the remote work? Feel free to type it in the chat box. You can see that flexible schedule is really, really nice for many of us. Is there anything else that you guys want to share about what you've enjoyed within your flexibility? Yes, extra time with my kids, Zach. That's a pro and a con, I'm not gonna lie. Said I have an 8 and a 9-year-old. No, I'm kidding. I've enjoyed it. It's been really great to have them around. Anyone else? Maybe we'll kind of watch it. There are perks, certainly, to having that remote work. We also know, unlimited access to food in the kitchen. Yes, yep. That can be one of the struggles as well, Jason. Working outside. Yes, Sam, love that. It's so nice. I sometimes will take my computer and I'll go sit outside, and especially we were discussing the weather. If you got on early enough, it's been so beautiful here. But it's so nice. It's easy to get outside and either exercising at lunch. Yeah, not worrying how I look after. I love it, Allison. Yes, perks. There are definitely perks to this. We can find the silver lining within it and going through it. Adversely, on this next slide, you can see many people are finding it more difficult to work together, to collaborate, communicate. Sometimes our internet is slow or in different time zones. Another key factor is loneliness, feeling constantly on the clock and being distracted. Anything else that somebody wants to share as sort of What's been difficult? What's been a struggle? Maybe, okay. Well, we'll keep watching here, but what this is really going to bring us into the next part of today's session, which is really how to build a good routine. And whether you're working at home, whether you're working in the office, I often think of routines with kids. You know, we say kids really like structure, they thrive in structure, but as adults, we do too. And so it's really important that we are finding a routine to help us to turn into that the positives of all of the remote work. So step one, hands down, we're going to create a routine. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, and Iman did in his introduction, I work as a wellness coach. And one of the biggest challenges that I keep hearing is not having a good routine at home. It's normal to take a little time to get to that routine and figure it out, but not having one definitely can create chaos. So you've probably heard before that writing things down makes them more likely to happen, like with goals, if you write it down. And so this is no different. You really want to write it down and make sure that you're getting it in words. Another thing that we suggest is following the same before and after work routine. So if you normally get up and you get dressed and you eat breakfast, watch the news, etc., then keep doing that, right? We want to make sure that you are that you're following the routine that you had when you were going to work. It's easy when you're at home just to get up and instantly just turn on your phone, sit at your computer, but that can lead to overworking later on. So it's important that you're developing those habits and creating that routine to start your day. And while working from home can allow for a flexible schedule, we really want to try to keep regular work hours as we can. We talked about that integration. Sometimes it's a little, we kind of have to move things around to make stuff work so we can get to our kids event or what's going on, but we really want to try to keep as regular hours as we can. So if you normally go into work at 8, try to stick close to that. And don't instantly get onto your computer chat box. Ease into your day just like you would at the office. Come in, get set, get your coffee, check your emails, get things going, and kind of work to get acclimated into your day. Again, as a coach, I keep hearing how people are just sitting at their computers all day while they're at home or in the office. Sometimes we'll have a conversation and I'll ask, how many hours a day do you sit at your desk? And it's like all day, every day. But particularly when you're at home, if there's not a coworker to suggest grabbing a coffee, or if you're not getting up to walk to lunch or to the printer, that can increase some of those feelings of frustration that you have at home. So take breaks at home. We cannot be productive when working indefinitely. Research actually says we become less productive even after working continuously for 90 minutes on something. So getting a break is going to help to shift our focus, regain attention, and put us in a better mood. So even if it means going to the other room to grab a coffee or walking down to the end of your driveway to get your mail, get up from your desk, take a little walk. Not only should you take breaks, but you want to take them in their entirety. So set a time to get up from your desk every so often. It's going to help you refresh. It's going to give you more steps. And don't skimp on your lunch break either. Again, it's very easy to think I'll just grab it and I'll sit here and I'll eat because I'm here. Take that break. It will help you be more productive. Doesn't feel that way sometimes to us. We feel guilty or whatnot, or okay, this is easy, I can just get it done. But take those breaks. It is really, really important. In order to achieve, again, some simulation of a normal day, you want to try to stick to those regular work hours. They might be a little bit different when you're at home, but if you can set that schedule, that can be really important. Just like we talked about starting our day with our typical routine, end your day with your typical routine. So if you, usually write some things down, you finish up your emails, you do whatever, do the same thing to close out your day like you would. And then really literally get up from your workspace, put down your phone, just even if there's one thing, if you're like, oh, just walk away, refrain from doing it if it's time to end your day. One task can easily suck you back into one more email. And as we talked about with that burnout, we need to show up as our best selves. So it's really about that break for us so that when we're there, when we're working, we are on it. We're ready for action. So, and one note, one of the benefits of remote work is flexibility. Sometimes you need to extend your day or start early to accommodate someone else's time zone or whatever. But just when you do, be sure to wrap up earlier, really stick to it. So if you know, hey, I have to get on early, then end your day early. So, just try to keep up with the same things. Also, for many of us, this is not possible, but if you have an alternate phone number, try to utilize that as much as you can, to try to keep that a little bit separate. We can sometimes feel really overwhelmed. I'm guilty. I get my emails to my phone, and I give out my cell for lots of things. And sometimes it's just a little bit harder to set the boundary, if you will, but be diligent with that yourself. So creating that routine. And again, if you're going into an office, it's still important that you have that routine, having those habits, to eat your breakfast, to start your day with water, to get in your physical activity, all really great things for general health, not just if you're working remotely. So the next thing that can be important is establishing your own workspace, particularly if you are at home. So whether that's your home office or just a spot at the kitchen table, we want to have a consistent designated workspace. Ideally, it has some natural lighting, as we tend to be more productive and happier with natural light. So if you can make that work, that's great. You also want to make sure that you have good internet connection, few distractions, and just really try to avoid working in bed. Many people do that. We want to separate sleep and work. It's not good for our posture, so we want to keep that separate. And in our workspace, we also want to make sure that we have everything that we need, and nothing that we don't need within this. We don't have the distractions within those workspace. And if you're working from home with family or kids or other people working from home, just make sure that you let them know to sort of respect that workspace. I mean, that's easier said than done sometimes. So I know that I make that sound real easy, right? Just tell them to not come in, but really try to get those rules established and get them to respect that. So next, and this may sound silly, but even when you're working from home, it's important to get dressed. Yes, we want to get dressed for our day. It doesn't have to be a suit and tie. It doesn't have to be anything formal, but getting dressed is going to help us feel more in a routine. It's perhaps prevent that overeating, that really easy snacking that we can do, as Jason suggested. So getting dressed is really important. And I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but stores are seeing an increase in shirt sales during this pandemic. Have you guys heard that? People are just getting dressed from the waist up. Whoop, whoop. Anyhow, for their Zoom meeting. So they've seen an increase in just tops of what people are buying for these video chats, which I think is pretty funny. If you need help with tuning out distractions, try using headphones. Even if you're not listening to anything, it can either set the tone to other people, like, oh, don't disturb them, they're busy. Or if it just blocks out some of the sound, or listen to music. Research does suggest that music without lyrics tends to be less distracting, but everybody has a different way that they work well. But it's really important that you are making sure that you're focused when you're working. And then we've heard a lot about people saying they're not eating meals, or sometimes not eating at all, but instead they're just snacking all day. It's very easy to get into that mode when we are at home. If you packed your breakfast or lunch at the office, keep with meal prepping at home. Keep meal prepping. Get your stuff ready. Zach said, I feel targeted. I love that. Zach, listen, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Totally true. It's so easy. It's so easy to snack. It's so easy to not be in that same routine. But if you did it before, and just like, getting up from your desk to eat, not sitting there and working the whole time, at the office, we recommend not eating at your workspace or in front of the computer at home. And take that entire lunch break. That break is going to be really good for you. So the last part of this section, we've created a routine. We have a workspace. We're dressing the part. The next step is how to stay on task. So working from home can really be distracting sometimes. Sometimes the office is really distracting as people are walking around, coming by, asking questions. And so it's very important that we come up with a to-do list that can be really helpful. Plan out your week or your day, figure out what your top priorities are. And it can be really impactful to plan your day around when you function best. So if you are a morning person, put your major tasks in your morning, get those out of the way. And vice versa for the afternoon. If you know, man, I really get focused at about 1 o'clock after I have lunch, try to get some smaller things done and then put that into your 1 o'clock. Be realistic with your to-do list and set realistic deadlines. It can feel really great crossing things off. It can also sometimes feel overwhelming if you're not crossing things off and you're not feeling like you're getting anywhere. So those small wins are going to increase our confidence, our motivation, and so set your tasks and reward yourself accordingly to getting those done. Another strategy for staying on track it's called the Ivy League method, which is basically a glorified to-do list. But this method has you write down your 6 most important tasks for the next day in order of importance at the end of your day. So that way it is off your brain for the night and you're ready to start your next day prepared. I don't know about you guys, if you've ever gotten to the end of the day, even to the point where you lay down in bed and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I need to do this tomorrow. And should I write that down? And what do I have going on? And should I do that? And did I complete that? And so take that last 10 minutes of your day to assess, what do I need to do tomorrow? What's highest on the priority list? Get all of those organized. And that's going to help you shut your brain off so that when you're with your family, when you're with your friends, when you're doing a volunteer opportunity, you're really present and you're there and you're engaged. And so major perks for staying on task. So that is sort of the first part of this. Before I know I'm talking really fast, there's so much information to get through, but do I have any questions or comments about sort of this concept of work-life integration, bringing things together, finding the balance within a routine? Any comments, questions, or concerns before I move on? The wonderful topic of stress management. Not seeing anything yet. We'll have some more time here to at the end, but also throughout here to comment and ask questions. So I'll kind of keep moving along. Stress is inevitable. We live life, we're gonna have stress. But certainly with everything that has been going on in our county, in our town, in our communities, in the world, it is heightened. We are feeling it at a heightened level. We are dealing with changes to our normal schedules, some financial stress. Some of us were homeschooling our children and trying to work, which let me tell you, that was really cool in my house. Oh my gosh. And we're doing all these things while really carrying the worry of our family and friends' health, trying to find the balance between maintaining good health and all these things that we have going on. So we're going to discuss the best way to manage stress and how we can utilize it to come out of this time with an even stronger mindset. But first, we want to take a minute to look at how stress affects us and our health. So stress is defined as our body's physical and mental response to anything that we view as overwhelming. So this can be from the good and the bad in life. And really our perceived lack of ability to meet that stress. So we talk about positive stress or eustress. We're talking about the good stresses. Planning a wedding, wonderful, can be very stressful. Having a baby, great, very stressful. Maybe performing or giving a presentation at work, getting a promotion, things that we're excited about, but we still have those underlying feelings of stress within them. That's our positive or our eustress. Next, we have our negative stress or distress. That can be from an injury or an illness, a loss of a job, maybe breaking up with us. It's what we typically think of when we think about stress. So just sort of recognizing that we can feel heightened levels of stress even when things are going well for us can be really impactful. It's also important to note that stress can affect our body and health in multiple ways. So we might feel it physically. For some of us, we get elevated blood pressure. We might start sweating, rapid breathing, some increased muscle tension, and even nausea and headache. We can actually feel ill from the stress. We can feel it emotionally. We might feel sad or angry, upset, guilty. And we can even start to have kind of excessive concern over little things that we didn't used to have those sort of feelings over. It might affect us mentally. It can affect our ability to focus and concentrate. We might even experience some mental fatigue and even a lack of motivation, just from feeling that stress and the overwhelmness. I'm not sure if that's a word, but of it. And then behaviorally, we might start changing the way that we manage our finances. We might have some work-related difficulties, or some, we might start changing some of our relationships and what we do. Even have a lack of attention to appearance. So it's just important to note stress is going to affect us, and it's going to affect us in a multitude of ways. And recognizing that, being able to identify that, is going to help us move forward more positively. So just for a second here, nobody needs to comment or talk. I want you individually to think about for just a moment, what are your stressors, positive and negative? Where in your body do you experience stress? And how do you currently cope with stress? What do you do when you're feeling really stressed? What are the things that you turn to? We want to reflect on these things because we're all different, and we want to identify them so that we can move forward through them and try to create positive ways. I would be remiss not to mention that we do at times develop unhealthy coping mechanisms, and many times they turn to food or beverage. Listen, I do it myself. It's very easy. Stress eating is actually a thing, and it is defined as the action or habit of eating or overeating as a means of relieving stress or anxiety rather than from hunger. And so essentially this just means we're turning to food or beverage for instant gratification, to feel good in that moment. But it's really not helping us to reduce the stress. And in fact, it can oftentimes lead us to feeling more stressed or overwhelmed. So I just want to make note of that. I like to always focus on the positive and what we should be doing, but I just want to identify it's a very common thing for us to do. We just kind of have to recognize, if this is a need that we have. So today, the three coping practices that we are going to discuss are mindfulness, relaxation, and self-care. And you guys, I want to bring this up again because I think this is such an important part of it. We use practices because we've got to really put these into place and practice them to get better with them. So the first one is practicing mindfulness, which is a non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. It is really being fully present, feeling focused, not being distracted, giving our full attention to a project or a person, maybe really savoring a meal. I don't know about you guys, but I find myself now just like inhaling food on the run, not really being in that moment, really listening to someone when they're talking, doing one task at a time, and feeling creative and open to new ideas. That's what it means to really be mindful and present in the moment. Some things that can get in the way: multitasking. Oh man, so easy right now. We're in a meeting and we're emailing and we're eating all at the same time. Sometimes we can do that well, but oftentimes when we're multitasking, it leads to a heightened level of stress. So we want to be thoughtful of how often we are multitasking. Rehashing, which is analyzing past events again and again. Anybody guilty of that? In our head, we're like, oh man, I should have done this and I could have done that, and why didn't we do that? And maybe we should do this. When we're thinking about the past, not in a reflective way, not in a present reflective, how do I move forward from this situation, but in a just, I'm reeling over this over and over, we're really taking away from the present moment and we're just adding to that stress. And then the last way that we're not being mindful, so there's multitasking, rehashing, is rehearsing, and that's creating future scenarios. I'm the queen of this. I put the cart before the horse. I start deciding what's going to happen before anything's ever happened. We're creating future scenarios. And so we really have to work on eliminating those within our day. So how to action? One of the best methods that I've heard is practicing stop. So S stands for literally stop. Stop what you're doing. If you're in the middle of an email and you're feeling really stressed, or even if you're not, stop. Take 3 deep breaths. Observe in that moment. Okay, how am I feeling? What do I need? Am I multitasking? And then proceed. For some of us, this comes really easy, and we do this naturally. For many of us, we don't. So particularly in the beginning, it can be helpful to put this on a calendar. It can be helpful to set an alarm on your phone to remind you to stop. Maybe just every day at noon, or maybe to start, you do it at 8 a.m., at noon, and at 5 p.m. You really take a minute, or whatever times of day you feel more stressed. And it doesn't have to be when you're stressed. This is a great practice for every day. It can be a great practice if you're trying to discipline a child and you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Instead of reacting in that moment, just stop. Take 3 deep breaths, observe, take in what's going on, and then proceed. So a really great practice to help us reduce our stress and create a more mindful presence. The next one is relaxation. It's what we typically think of when we think about stress management. It's a way to bring our system back into balance, to increase our blood flow to our brain, relax our muscles, slower our heart rate. There's a number of ways that you can practice relaxation. Get up from your desk or the table, go for a short brisk walk, practice that deep breathing, get up and do some stretches, listen to some music for a few minutes, look at pictures of your favorite vacation spot. Is anybody missing their favorite vacation spots right now? Sometimes it's just having a hobby that you enjoy: gardening, reading, cooking a healthy meal, designating that time in your day to relax. Other great ways is to practice meditation or progressive muscle relaxation. And if that's not something that you're comfortable doing on your own, there's some great apps like Calm is one, or Headspace is another one. And I think they have some free applications right now because of everything that's going on. You can choose 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute meditations to walk you through, while you're learning those practices. It can be a great way to do it. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to share for ways that they relax? Sometimes a hot shower. Some people use scents. Lavender can be really relaxing. So just having a lavender scentsy or candle at your desk can be really helpful. A short nap, yes, the power nap. Just taking that minute to rest your body, get it back into a place where it can restore itself. We often turn to relaxation practices when we need them, right, in that moment. And research really tells us that the more that we practice them on a day-to-day basis, the more effective they are, especially in the moments when we need them. So just something to take note of. Okay, so practicing mindfulness, practicing relaxation, and then the last one is self-care. We talked about, it's important in general, right, to practice self-care, mind, body, and spirit. It's not going to take away what happens to us, but it's going to support how we handle those stressful situations. So what are some ways that we can practice self-care? Get quality sleep. That means going to bed, waking up around the same time every night, turning off those devices so that we can go to sleep. Drinking plenty of water, getting in some physical activity, being organized, or developing a routine can be so super helpful to our self-care. Does anybody have anything else to share for things that they do to sort of support self-care? Again, these are not things, going for a run is not going to remove our stress, but it's going to help how we deal with it. While we're waiting to see if anybody else comments, going outside to sit for a minute. Yes, great way to practice self-care. The fresh air can be just wonderfully refreshing and relaxing and rejuvenating, really. Is there anything else? Music, yes. And Jason, I always laugh, right? Because for some people, self-care music is like, rock or hip hop or whatever, and some it's classical. Everybody's a little bit different, but yes, turning on some music, having a dance party in the kitchen. That's like one of my go-tos at the end of the day. If everybody's feeling a little stressed, I'm like crank it up, dance, great way. Yeah, reading, cooking, driving, taking a drive, that can be a great way to just refresh and feel better for sure. So there's so many ways that we can practice self-care for ourselves. And it feels selfish in the moment oftentimes, but it really is setting us up to best care for our family, our friends, and our work. It's also important to note that you can tap into your resources for self-care. Don't hesitate to talk to your provider, to talk to a counselor or your spiritual leader, to discuss with your supervisor how you're feeling. Tap into those resources and utilize them, if you're feeling off within the realm of self-care. And remember that what may be balanced for others is different maybe for you. So you have to, figure out what works in the realm. We're so quick to jump on the latest trend or okay, this person does this, so this is great. Iman, I'm going to call you out here. Iman gets up at the crack of dawn and goes to the gym and woohoo, good for Iman. For some people that doesn't work, right? But if they're like, oh, well, Iman is really great at this, so I'm going to do this, but they are not a morning person, that might not work for them. And they're not setting themselves up for success. So we really want to identify the ways that are practical, realistic to work with in our own lives. Hope you don't mind, Iman, that I not threw you under the bus. I called you out. You have a great practice. So anyhow, those are the three main ways that we can develop practices, healthy coping patterns to deal with stress. Unfortunately, it is inevitable in life. We are going to experience stress, and it's going to happen if we are living. And so really having those practices is important. And as I said, the more mindful we become more mindful when we are practicing stop. The more that we practice self-care, the more ready we are to handle what happens. The more that we practice relaxation, the better effective those techniques are in the moment. But the last thing that I want to touch on, I'm trying to be cognizant of our time here, and I promise I'm almost done, is really how do we utilize the stress, since it is heightened right now, we're all feeling it more so than maybe we have in the past, to come out of this with resilience and a stronger mindset. So this is a pressure curve. It's the Yerkes-Dodson curve, and it sort of shows how stress works in our lives. So while stress can improve our performance in the beginning, at some point, too much stress begins to hurt us or impact our ability to bounce back. So as you can see from this chart, when no stress is present in the blue zone, we tend to be, it says boredom here, but we're unmotivated, underperforming. We need some sort of incentive to get us going and to feel productive. So we need some stress. Stress is good. Everybody hear that? Stress is good. And so when we start to experience some stress, maybe goals, deadlines, exciting proposals, our performance improves. So this is the green space. We are energized at the peak of our stress curve. As pressure and stresses increase, however, or they become chronic, we are not dealing with them. This is when our performance begins to decrease. This can create even more stress. It's going to create perhaps a downward spiral, and that will lead us to exhaustion and burnout. So some stress is good for us because it's going to help us build resilience. Those healthy coping practices are what keep us from going over the edge, right? Resilience, is important because it is going to affect our ability to bounce back. So you can see here some different definitions of resilience. We recover readily from illness, depression, adversity, recover or adjust easily to misfortune or change, all very much the same. But our ability to recover or rebound from stressful situations can actually be positive for our lives. Resilience can promote self-growth and improve our mindset. So we want to be experiencing some stress. We want to be going through them to improve our overall well-being, self-growth, self-efficacy, and mindfulness. So one last little diagram here that just shows the pressure that we face every day, those stresses. when they are met with negative reactions, it's going to lead to heightened stress and impaired performance. It's going to make us feel more stressed, essentially. But that same pressure, the same things that we're up against when met with positive reactions, with healthy coping mechanisms, are actually going to build resilience and growth within us. So key and so important. So just to kind of follow up and recap here, a couple important tidbits to remember. Work and life do not necessarily have to be separate. What we have to work to do is integrate the things that are important to us into our life, create space and time for them, and understand it's just not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Really evaluate your needs and build a routine around that. Create what works best for you and try to stick with it. It gets easier. The more you do it, the more, we used to say it takes 21 days to build a habit. We don't say that anymore because we know sometimes it takes longer, but build that routine. Not all stress is bad. If there's any takeaway from this, I hope that that's really one of them. We have good stresses. If we're really busy at work, that must mean that we've got a lot going on and things are good at work, maybe. But not all stress is bad, and not all stress in terms of what it is, the stress, but also its impact on us is not bad. It's really good for us. The important part is that we are creating healthy practices, that we're practicing stop throughout our day, that we're setting our alarm to do that if it's not something that we do naturally, until it becomes a part of our day. That we're practicing relaxation, that we're practicing self-care. Oh my gosh, I just talked so much, you guys. Does anybody have any questions? I will get out of my screen here and I can turn, unless you guys need me to click back through any of the, how do I do this? Oh, right there. I'm going to stop that and I'll start my video back up. Hi. Do you guys have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? There's my chat box now. Anything? I know I just went through a lot really quickly. Oh, Bonnie. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Handle distractions at home during these times. I remove them when I can. That sounds terrible. I mean, the dog is in the background right now, but oftentimes I'll put her in a totally separate place. She's one of my distractions. One of the things, and this is just personal to me, I have a really hard time when there's things to do around the house. Like if there's dishes in the sink, that's distracting to me. So every night I try to make sure that, the dishwasher is loaded, the kitchen is picked up. If there's laundry to be put away, I put it away at the end of the day. Because if I have those things sort of lingering for me, I have a harder time focusing because I'm thinking about what's going on. If the distractions are, I live off of Maple. I don't know if you guys have been able to hear cars going by, but move to a different area if you have to. If there's particular noises or things that are distracting you, and also give yourself grace and know that it's just not going to be perfect. I don't know how many of you guys sat on meetings where there's been kids in the background or, oh my gosh, I have to get up. And I think we're all giving ourselves, hopefully, but others grace. And we're giving others grace, so we should give it to ourselves. That it might be a little bit more distracting at this point. Anything else? Any other thoughts, questions, Yeah. Jason, what are you going to do different?
I gotta stay away from the kitchen. That's the first thing I gotta do. But listen, so this was a really, really solid session.
Good.
And I think it probably validated a lot of thoughts that many of us probably already had. I love the comment about, not all stress is bad stress, and some of it could be good for your growth or whatnot. And I thought that was very validating, because it's hard to tell sometimes, if you're just overwhelmed or if you're in a growth period. So I really, really appreciated that.
Yep.
And you present very well. You really do.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
I think we could do this for more than 1 hour. Love to have you back.
I could talk all day. Ask my husband, poor guy. Or my neighbor, Ethan. I just get chatting. So
I'm right there with you.
I appreciate this time. I think it's important that we do all know that we're not alone in these feelings and how we're adapting to this, the feelings of stress and the feelings of, getting out of our sorts. We're really all in this together. And so just recognizing that we're not alone in it. And I often say we just got to control what we can. There's a lot outside of our control. And so what can we do within our day to try to bring, some control to it?
Yeah, I'm going to work on the multitasking. Maybe I was doing that.
I was about to say, I love when cameras start going off, and this is not, I do it myself, right? And it's like, I know we have things to do. And we live in a world where we sort of do that all the time, but the more that we can try to limit that, the more we just feel a little bit more relaxed, generally speaking. So, yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
So hopefully we'll get to do it again. I think everyone will definitely appreciate and congratulate you on spending time with us, and then welcome to be part of the tech family. So you're a Golden Eagle now, so wings up on that. Okay. And then for the rest of the group, just stay tuned. Join in on the Facebook page. Try to keep in contact. We'll have another on the menu pretty soon. I think these are super helpful, especially for the young professionals here who are trying to adapt this new lifestyle, and also really trying to adapt this new professional lifestyle as well in general. So appreciate you all. Sarah, we'll get in contact with you again for sure. So I definitely appreciate it.
I so appreciate this.
Everybody have a good afternoon.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Jason. Bye, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye, May. Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome. See you.
We'll see you guys. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. I'm here.